Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Pointy Not Sharp. Today I'm doing something a little bit different by request. I'm going to go through and I'm going to name all of the different components of a bayonet. So I've got a couple examples here in front of me, and I'm just going to go through and explain what each of the different components are called. And yeah, so I'll break it down into four major components. So with the bayonet, you've got the blade, the hilt or handle, the scabbard, and the frog. So your blades, you can either have like a blade like this, or generally a cruciform as well. I'll turn my light on actually, that's a bit better. So cruciform like what you have on your label bayonet. But for today's video, we'll stick to the classic blade. So I'll put this cruciform away very quickly. Now, looking at the blade, at the very end here, we have the tip or the point, depending on what country's bayonet you've got. For example, the British call it the point, and all of their doctrine and their PAMs, when you stab a target, they call it delivering the point. Anyway, that's pretty self-explanatory. Then the actual edge of the blade that's been sharpened is called the true edge. And if you have a edge on the other side that's been thinned out or partially sharpened, that's called a false edge. And I have a false edge on this one just here. As you can see, it's been thinned out but not sharpened. Now, running down the back of the blade, we have the spine, as you can see here. Sometimes you'll find markings at the base of the spine on German bayonets predominantly. Obviously not on this. And then running down the center, we have a fuller. There's a whole plethora of myths out there that it's called a blood groove, or it's made for allowing blood to run when you stab someone, or make it easier to pull from a target. That's not true. A fuller is carved into the part of the blade that's least load bearing, and it reduces the weight by 20 to 30%. So the idea is when you stab something, the parts of the bayonet that are under the most stress are the spine and the blade. So they found they could remove a bit of material from the center without decreasing the strength or rigidity of the blade itself too much. Anyway, moving down, this flat surface just above the crossguard is called the ricasso, and as you can see, we've got a lot of markings on there. It's pretty common that you'll find this area of the bayonet used to express information, be it manufacturer's marks, inspection marks, acceptance marks, or what have you. And that's pretty much all. Well, that's the most common features of a blade. There are different kinds of blades with like clip pointed ends and dagger types and spear points and bolos, but I'll go through different blade profiles in a different video, and I'll also cover sockets in a different video as well. Now, the second component is the handle or hilt. Both are correct. You'll hear me calling it a handle. I think hilt sounds a bit silly and old-fashioned, or makes it sound like I'm referring to a medieval sword. But to begin with, you have your crosspiece or crossguard. Now, generally, if it's just a small piece like this, it's called a crosspiece. However, if it's a bit larger and it's designed for blocking or protecting the user from another's blade, like this hook Quillin does here, that's generally when you'll start calling it a crossguard. However, you'll hear me refer to everything as a crossguard. So I'll refer to all crosspieces as crossguards and all hilts as handles. That's just what I'm used to. On the crossguard here, you have a muzzle ring, very, very obvious. And moving down, we've got our grips or handle, whatever you want to call it. Grips is probably fair for the removable wooden pieces or Bakelite or whatever other material. Then you'll have your rivets securing them. Now, you'll also come across inspection hole, cleaning holes, clean out holes, whatever you want to call them. So on this one here, we've got a cleaning hole down the base here. On most of your German levels, you'll have these clean out holes just here above my thumb. But I've heard a whole range of different names for them: inspection holes, cleaning holes, oiling holes. Generally, By the book, they're cleaning holes or clean out holes, but I think pretty much all of that is relatively correct. What else do we have? Probably shouldn't go too much further without mentioning the Quillin. So a hooked Quillin is this curved piece here that's designed to stop another blade from sliding down and injuring the user. They were removed from most bayonets because they're wildly impractical and they get caught in everything. And at the end of the Quillin here, we have a ball finale, which is something you'll also see at the tip of scabbards. That's just a little bulge there. Now, if it's forward facing like this, it's a Quillin. And if it's rearwards facing like this, like you'll see on a lot of German bayonets, it's a quill back. And while a lot of bayonets will have a muzzle ring, a lot of the old German ones will have ears instead of a muzzle ring. This is a great example of a blade with markings on the spine. Now, pommels. Jump down to pommels. So the pommel is the generally metal base of a bayonet. You can come across different materials, but generally metallic. Usually quite solid. Soldiers will generally use them as a hammer, so you'll find lots of little dents and things in the bottom there quite regularly. Then you have your press stud or press button or locking bolt or locking stud, whatever you want to call it. If it's got a big leaf spring, that's often referred to as a locking spring. You'll generally find those on all of your 19th century bayonets, a lot of your black powder bayonets, your early sword and knife types. But yeah, generally everything in the 20th century will have this style here. And then you'll generally have a mortise slot here as well. So that's what the bayonet lug on the rifle slides into. While the muzzle slides into the muzzle ring, the bayonet lug slides into the the mortise. And within the mortise you have a locking lug. I'll get that to focus. There you go. It's very hard to see, but essentially it's a little retaining lug in there that holds onto the rifle. Now, those are the general components you'll find on a bayonet. You'll find plenty of bayonets out there with lots of different features, like this Swiss 1914 Pioneer sawback has a nice big sawback on the back. You'll find these on German bayonets, Swiss bayonets, and some of the old English ones too. That being said, there's probably plenty of others out there that have sawbacks that I'm not familiar with. So, I might move on to scabbards. So, not all scabbards are the same. In fact, most modern scabbards are very, very different to the older ones here, and the terms I'm going to use generally fit the older style, not so much the newer ones. But generally with a scabbard you'll have a mouth, very obvious why it's called a mouth, or a throat. It's also referred to as a throat sometimes. And this top component here, the top metallic component, is referred to as a locket with a frog stud or frog bar. So generally all your French have frog bars, and they'll just have something that loops through and attaches to the frog. Okay, and generally inside your mouth you'll have retention springs that hold onto the bayonet and retain it within the scabbard. Moving down, we have the body, obviously why it's called that. Then we have our chape or end mount. Doesn't matter what you call it, they're both correct. And quite often you'll find they have holes drilled in the bottom for drainage of water. This is quite an older one and does not have that feature. And quite a few of the European bayonets will also have a ball finale at the tip, and again they'll quite regularly have a hole drilled in the bottom. This is another example that does not. In fact, I don't think any of these ones here do. It's quite odd. And yeah, that's the bayonet and the scabbard. The only thing else to really talk about is the frog. So frogs come in a variety of different styles. This is a American contract Cook frog for a pattern it's a 1914 frog, It was made 1915 by Cook. We'll just go through the various features we've got here. So generally you'll have a belt loop or a wire hanger for attaching it to your gear. So wire hangers are very American, but you find them on others as well. This is a Spanish Set-Me-El with a wire hanger and a belt loop as well. So I'll hold on to this one while I explain the next thing you'll find on frogs is a hilt strap or a handle strap. That just obviously goes over the handle. Very straightforward, doesn't require any other explanation. You'll also find frog stud openings, so that's your frog stud on your scabbard will just fit through there, and there's sometimes you have retention devices, sometimes you don't. You've got a frog locking bar on the Swiss one here, and you'll have a vertical strap that goes through that. That's generally what you'll find on your French ones as well. Then you'll have your front piece, your body, and the old English ones also have helve straps for attaching a helve to your bayonet, which is like the post on an entrenching tool, and that would just be sitting on the side. Anyway, those are most of the generally accepted names you'll find for different components of a bayonet. If you've been in the hobby for a while, you probably know these already. But it's good to know, and it's fantastic when you're trying to describe a bayonet to someone else, or particularly when you're trying to describe markings to a friend and you don't have photos. Anyway, guys, those are the names I've come across, and what I found in my two sources, being British and Commonwealth Bayonets by Skeleton and Richardson, and Cobb's website, World of Bayonets, which is an absolutely fantastic resource. Love it to bits. If you disagree, or you know of any other great little names, let me know. Comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, thanks for watching.